Chapter 13, Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga, Yoga, the yoga of the field and the knower of the field. After revealing the path of devotion in chapter 12, Krishna now shifts to deeper wisdom, the distinction between body and soul, matter and spirit. In this chapter, Krishna calls the body the Kshetra, the field. It is the ground where experiences, actions, and karmas take place. But beyond the field is the Kshetrajna, the knower of the field, the conscious self, the eternal witness. This is the yoga of discernment, separating the changing from the unchanging, the temporary from the eternal. Psychology relates this to self-awareness, knowing that emotions, thoughts, and sensations come and go, but the deeper I remains. Neuroscience suggests the same awareness is not the brain's flickering activity, but the unbroken witness behind it. Logic affirms. The eye sees, but is not what it sees. The witness observes, but is not what it observes. Thus begins chapter 13, the revelation of the knower and the known, the eternal self, shining through the temporary body. In verse 1, Arjuna respectfully asks, "O Krishna, I wish to understand the difference between Prakriti, material nature, and Purusha, spirit, between the Kshetra, the field, and the Kshetrajna, the knower of the field." This question strikes at the heart of philosophy. What am I really? Am I the body, the senses, the mind, or the eternal consciousness behind them? In verses 2 to 3, Krishna responds with clarity. The body is called the Kshetra, the field. The one who knows this body is the Kshetrajna, the knower of the field. Know, O Arjuna, that I am also the knower in all fields. True knowledge is to understand the field and its knower. Here, Krishna defines the key distinction. The body, with its senses, mind, and experiences, is the field. The conscious self, the witness, the experiencer, is the knower of the field. And beyond all, Krishna himself is the supreme knower, in every being, the universal consciousness. Psychology compares this to mindfulness. Being aware that I have a body, I have thoughts, but I am not limited to them. Neuroscience explains this through the observer effect. Awareness can watch the brain's processes without being identical to them. Logic makes it plain. A farmer owns many fields, but he himself is not the field. The knower is always distinct from what is known. Thus, Krishna sets the stage. To know the difference between matter and spirit, body and soul, is the beginning of true wisdom. In verse 4, Krishna begins, what the field is, what its modifications are, and from what it arises. Also, who the knower of the field is, and what his powers are. Hear this from me in brief. Now he will map the anatomy of existence. In verses 5 to 6, he says, the sages have sung of this in many ways, in various scriptures, and especially in the Brahma Sutras, which logically explain it all. Thus, Krishna is grounding his teaching in the wisdom tradition, showing that this knowledge is not new but eternal. In verse 7, he outlines the components of the field, the great elements, ego, intellect, the unmanifest, the 10 senses, the mind, the 5 objects of sense, desire, aversion, pleasure, pain, the body, consciousness, and firmness. All these together are declared to be the field. This is a complete map of human experience. Elements, earth, water, fire, air, space, the physical base. Ego, the sense of I and mine. Intellect, the discriminating faculty. Unmanifest, the subtle root of matter. Senses and mind are instruments of perception. Objects, sound, touch, form, taste, smell, emotions, desire, aversion, pleasure, pain, life itself, the body and the spark of awareness, firmness, the stability that sustains action. Psychology would call this the full spectrum of personality, from instincts to thoughts to emotions. Neuroscience identifies these as layers of the nervous system and consciousness: sensory input, emotional circuits, executive function, and awareness. Logic shows, to analyze a machine, we must know its parts. Similarly, to understand life, we must see the components of the field. Thus, Krishna reveals, the Kshetra is not just flesh and bones. It is the vast field of body, mind, and experience, in which the soul and the Supreme stand as witnesses. In verse 8, Krishna begins describing the qualities of true wisdom: humility, absence of pride, non-violence, patience, straightforwardness, service to the teacher, purity, steadiness, and self-control. These are not intellectual feats, but attitudes of the heart. Psychology calls this emotional maturity. Humility reduces ego, patience stabilizes emotions, and self-control aligns desires with higher goals. Neuroscience confirms. Traits like humility and patience calm the amygdala and strengthen prefrontal regulation, allowing for balance and resilience. Logic makes it clear. Knowledge without character is like a sword without a sheath. Dangerous. In verse 9, he continues, detachment, absence of obsession with possessions, steadiness in facing the pain of birth, death, old age, and disease. Here Krishna points to acceptance of life's inevitable realities. Psychology sees this as resilience and detachment from material clinging. Neuroscience notes, acceptance practices reduce stress responses and promote inner peace. Logic proves. Denying reality doesn't change it, but facing it makes us strong. In verses 10 to 11 he adds, no attachment to family ties, constant even-mindedness in favorable and unfavorable situations, unshaken devotion to me, preference for solitude, delight in self-knowledge, and steady pursuit of truth. This is the yogi's portrait, balanced, devoted, inwardly rich. Psychology calls it self-actualization, living by inner truth rather than social pressure. Neuroscience shows that solitude and meditation activate deep creativity and self-awareness. Logic explains, one who depends on the inner lamp is never lost in external darkness. In verse 12, Krishna concludes this list. All these are declared to be knowledge. Whatever is contrary to this is ignorance. Thus, knowledge is not stuffing the head with facts. True wisdom is a life shaped by humility, self-control, detachment, balance, devotion, and love of truth. In verse 13, Krishna declares, I shall now explain what is to be known, by knowing which one attains immortality. It is the supreme Brahman, beginningless, said to be beyond existence and non-existence. Here Krishna shifts from qualities of wisdom to the highest object of knowledge. Psychology interprets this as the search for ultimate meaning, beyond the dualities of pleasure and pain, gain and loss. Neuroscience notes that transcendental states reduce binary, black and white thinking, opening pathways to non-dual awareness. Logic shows, truth cannot be limited by categories of is or is not, for it is the foundation of both. In verse 14, he continues, that supreme pervades everywhere, hands, feet, eyes, heads, mouths, and ears in every direction. It exists, embracing all. This is the cosmic vision, the divine as all-pervading consciousness. Psychology calls this the expansion of identity, seeing oneself not as separate but as interconnected. Neuroscience explains, meditation on interconnectedness reduces ego-centered brain activity, expanding empathy. Logic proves, the ocean appears as countless waves, but the essence of all is water. In verse 15, Krishna adds, shining through the senses, yet free from them, unattached, yet sustaining all, beyond the gunas, yet the experiencer of the gunas. This reveals the paradox of the divine, immanent and transcendent. Psychology likens this to the witness consciousness, awareness that observes without being bound. Neuroscience links this to meta-awareness, the brain recognizing experience without over-identification. Logic clarifies, the lamp illumines a play, yet is untouched by the drama. In verse 16, he deepens the mystery. Outside and inside all beings, moving and unmoving, far away and also near. Within everything, yet outside everything. The divine is both intimate and vast. Psychology calls this the tension of opposites. Truth holds paradox. Neuroscience observes that meditation on such paradoxes activates higher reasoning beyond ordinary categories. Logic affirms, space is within a pot and outside it, yet never limited by the pot. In verses 17-18, Krishna declares, it is indivisible, yet seems divided among beings. It sustains all, devours all, and generates all again. It is the light of lights, beyond darkness. It is knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the goal of knowledge, dwelling in the hearts of all. Here is the summit, the divine as the source, sustainer, and final refuge. Psychology interprets this as the unifying self, the ground of meaning in every human heart. Neuroscience explains, mystical experiences often bring this felt sense of light, unity, and boundless awareness. Logic proves, just as the sun illumines all sights, the divine illumines all knowing. In verse 19, Krishna declares, know that both Prakriti, material, nature, and Purusha, the conscious spirit, are beginningless. From Prakriti arise the modes of matter and action. From Purusha comes the experience of pleasure and pain. Here Krishna defines the two eternal principles. Psychology sees this as the body-mind system nature and the conscious witness spirit. Neuroscience parallels this with brain activity experience and awareness, the observer. Logic makes it clear. A play requires both the stage nature and the actor spirit. In verse 20 he continues, Purusha, dwelling in Prakriti, experiences the gunas modes of nature, born of Prakriti. Attachment to these gunas is the cause of birth in higher or lower womb. This is the cycle of bondage, spirit entangled with matter. Psychology calls this conditioning. Attachment to impulses shapes personality and destiny. Neuroscience shows that habits and cravings wire the brain, pulling awareness into cycles of repetition. Logic proves, the bird caught in the net flies according to the net's pull, not its true wings. In verse 21, Krishna reveals, the supreme Purusha in this body is the witness, the approver, the sustainer, the enjoyer, and the Lord, called the Supreme Self. Here he distinguishes between the individual self and the Supreme Self. Psychology refers to this as the higher self beyond the ego, guiding inner growth. Neuroscience suggests that spiritual practices awaken meta-awareness, the sense of an observing presence. Logic clarifies, the reflection in the mirror depends on the light, but the light itself is independent. In verse 22, Krishna gives the liberating insight. He who truly knows Purusha and Prakriti with its gunas even while living in this world is not born again. Knowledge itself liberates, psychology affirms. Awareness of conditioning weakens its grip. Neuroscience shows that mindful recognition of patterns reshapes neural pathways, breaking cycles. Logic demonstrates. The prisoner who realizes the door is unlocked need not remain confined. In verse 23, Krishna concludes this section. Some perceive the self within by meditation, others by knowledge, and still others by selfless action. But all strive toward the same goal. Different yogas, one destination. Psychology calls this diversity of temperament, intellect, devotion, action. Neuroscience reflects that different practices, concentration, study, service, all activate transformative brain pathways. Logic affirms. Many rivers flow from different sources, but all reach the same ocean. In verse 24, Krishna declares, "Those without knowledge do not perceive the self, dwelling equally in all bodies. Deluded by ignorance, they do not see the truth. Ignorance veils vision." Psychology describes this as projection. The ego sees differences of caste, wealth, and form, but not the unity behind them. Neuroscience explains. Perception is conditioned by bias. The brain filters reality through learned patterns. Logic proves. The one sun reflected in many pots of water may seem many, but is only one. In verse 25, he continues. Those who strive by meditation perceive the self within, but those whose minds are impure and undisciplined, though striving, cannot perceive it. Purity of mind is essential. Psychology calls this clarity of attention. Without emotional regulation, meditation falters. Neuroscience confirms. Constant distraction weakens the brain's ability to sustain focus. Logic makes it clear. A muddy lake cannot reflect the sky, but when still and pure, the truth appears. In verse 26, Krishna says, "Those who perceive the difference between the field and the knower of the field, and who know the process of liberation from Prakriti, attain the supreme." Here lies the core of wisdom, knowing that the self is not the body, and that freedom lies in detachment. Psychology equates this with disidentification from thoughts and emotions, realizing I am not my mind. Neuroscience shows that practices of meta-awareness reduce reactivity, strengthening higher awareness. Logic illustrates. The actor in costume must not forget he is not the costume. In verse 27, he explains, "Whatever is born, moving or unmoving, know it to arise from the union of the field Prakriti, and the knower of the field Purusha. All life is a blend of matter and spirit." Psychology echoes. Behavior emerges from both biology, body, and awareness consciousness. Neuroscience reflects. Even thoughts arise from neural processes, yet require awareness to be known. Logic shows. The lamp and the oil together create flame. Neither alone can burn. Finally, in verse 28, Krishna concludes, "He who truly sees the Supreme Lord equally present in all beings never degrades himself. By this vision, he attains the highest goal. Equality is the fruit of wisdom." Psychology calls this universal compassion, seeing beyond ego into shared humanity. Neuroscience reveals that empathy circuits in the brain activate when we feel others as part of ourselves. Logic clarifies when the same gold forms many ornaments, the wise value the gold, not the form. Thus, Krishna ends chapter 13 by teaching that true wisdom is seeing the one in all, beyond illusion, beyond division.